Jake Paul is back. The problem child will return to the ring this Friday, the 15th of December, in a bout that will be screened in the UK on DAZN. The last time out, he faced off against MMA royalty in Nate Diaz. But the question that everyone was asking after Jake Paul's split decision loss to Tommy Fury is, will Jake Paul be getting back in there with another professional boxer? And the answer to that is yes, because this weekend he gets in with a man who's been boxing longer than Tommy Fury, with a man who's had more fights than Tommy Fury, and with a man who has more knockouts on his record than Tommy Fury. So this fella must be a right step up from Tommy Fury then, eh? Not really, but listen, I want to give you guys my personal views on this fight and let you draw your own conclusions. Right, people, what's happening, and welcome to the first upload of the Joey Knight Boxing channel. This is my new channel where I will be covering all things fighting on a weekly basis. So please do me a massive favor, help this, my first upload, get out there to as many people as possible and spread the word by hitting the like button on this video. Please also hit the subscribe button and the bell so that you get a notification every time one of my videos goes live. Let's get into it. Right, so for me, Jake Paul is probably the most accomplished influencer boxer out there. And let me give that claim a little bit of context. Tommy Fury, in my opinion, is not really an influencer boxer. Tommy Fury didn't get into boxing looking for YouTube boxing. YouTube boxing came and found Tommy Fury, and my God, he is lucky it did. But if there was no KSI, no Jake Paul, or anyone like that, my guess would be that Tommy Fury's still probably fighting for lesser money against lesser known opposition on his brother's undercards. Now, KSI is probably the other leading name in influencer boxing, but in my opinion, I can't really draw a conclusion as to where KSI is definitively at. For my money, he's only really fought two guys that can actually fight. The first being pretty much a dinosaur in Joe Fournier, well past his prime, if there ever was a prime, and he's pretty much well known for being the Haymaker's best friend. And the second being Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury's fallen on his feet, isn't he? And as impressive and as surprising as KSI's performance was against Tommy Fury, I just don't think he's got the depth to his resume for me to simply put him above Jake Paul at this moment in time. Because regardless of Jake Paul fighting MMA guys a lot of the time, you've got to admit, out of all the influencer boxers, he does have the best resume. But Jake Paul does not want to be an influencer boxer, and that's why this fight is actually all right for him. It's pretty standard, isn't it? And in fact, at a glance, for boxing standards, is pretty impressive. You got a 7-1 guy taking on a 10-1-1 guy. But sometimes records can be deceiving, and upon doing a little bit of digging on Andre August, you may well realize that this is probably one of those times. So let's have a look at Andre August's box rec. So the first thing you'll see is that he's literally never fought on a big card, but we can give him the benefit of the doubt there. I mean, surely some of the best fights I've ever seen in my life have been on small hall shows at the likes of York Hall, Bethnal Green, or other small arenas. So nothing massively wrong with that. And if I'm honest, 4 stoppages in his first 6 fights is actually pretty good going, no matter what level of boxing you're competing at. But then when you get to fight number 7, Andre August has lost to this guy, Eric Abraham, who, although at the time they fought maybe didn't have a record to suggest so, he's literally a journeyman who has only won 1 out of his last 13 fights. But he does look a little bit familiar, doesn't he, actually? Because ironically, that 1 win he got out of his last 13 fights was against the brother of Deontay Wilder. So maybe that suggests that the guy that Andre August lost to was half decent, and therefore maybe Andre August is half decent, but I don't know, man. For me, his record really concerns me. In his 12 bouts so far, he's amassed a total of 39 rounds. The lesser experienced man, Jake Paul, has amassed a total of 44 rounds. Jake's been past 6 rounds 4 times in his career now, whereas Andre August has not been past 6 rounds once. Jake, for me, going into this fight, is the more experienced man, especially when it comes to headlining big events. He's the younger man, the taller man. He's got a longer reach and a higher knockout percentage. And my guess would be that the fact that Jake Paul has been in such big events would make him a lot more financially secure than maybe an Andre August is. And the more financially secure you are in boxing, the more of your time you can afford to dedicate to being in the gym and learning your craft. But this guy's a pro boxer, and when he was making his professional boxing debut, Jake Paul was still making YouTube prank videos, so you'd probably be right to assume that this guy, Andre August, comes from better fighting stock than Jake Paul. But let's have a look at the eye test. Let's see what Andre August looks like actually throwing punches. Right, so here's a little clip of Andre August shadow boxing. He looks half decent, little bit of head movement. He's just warming up, working up a sweat. He's finished. Okay, right. Well, work smart, not hard. No, but seriously, some of this guy's highlight reels actually look all right, but then you've got to ask the question, well, what is there really coming back at him? Because his highlight reels are showing him pinning guys on the ropes, and being able to do that against low-level opposition is one thing, but being able to do that against a guy who's got a little bit of experience like Jake Paul is a completely different thing. If Jake Paul was this easy to close the range against, Tommy Fury would have just done that and would have just mauled him on the inside, but he didn't, and not so much so because Jake Paul has an amazing jab or really good footwork, because I don't think he actually has either, but Jake has belief and Jake has the power in both hands to be able to hurt you as you come in. And from the small snippets I'm seeing so far of Andre August, his defense is pretty much non-existent, isn't it? I can pretty much guarantee you that Jake Paul will land bombs on this guy, and if he can time him when he's trying to open up and unload punches on Jake Paul, I'm pretty sure Jake Paul chins him, you know. Now, my advice to Jake Paul would be to hold the center of the ring to the best of his ability, throwing jabs to both head and to body, but not to be too concerned when Andre August inevitably pushes forward against him. Believe me, that is when Andre August will be the easiest to hit, because the man's got slow feet and no head movement, and those are some of the easiest guys to box. And I don't know what happens behind closed doors in sparring, but on the fight footage we're seeing, I don't think either are attributes that he's going to have ready and improved in time for this Friday. I think if Jake Paul can sting him with that sharp jab to the body that we've seen in the past, Andre August's coordination and defense will desert him, and then we may end up seeing something similar to what happened in the Tyrone Woodley rematch. And this might be a risky tactic, you know, and ultimately Jake Paul will gauge what he's going to do upon feeling a little bit of Andre August's punch power or lack thereof in there. Now, if Andre August is a dangerous puncher, maybe Jake Paul will look to bounce back on some of his boxing skill that he's developed since starting this journey. However, if Jake Paul doesn't rate Andre August's power, as risky as it sounds, I would advise him to just throw with him, you know, because we have actually seen Jake Paul have his chin checked and take good shots and come through those tests. But Andre August has been stopped before, and he's massively vulnerable coming forward. I can just see maybe a short, sharp left hook on the inside from Jake Paul taking Andre August to the canvas. But listen, I respect anyone who gets in a boxing ring, but I do have to call it for what it is. Jake's quicker than this guy. Jake's a better boxer than this guy, and I do very much believe that Andre August is a cherry-picked opponent. But does that mean that Jake Paul is at fault for taking this fight? No, not at all. Jake Paul's not fighting Andre August on pay-per-view, and let's be honest, for a Jake Paul event, it's been a pretty low-key build-up, hasn't it? Jake believes he can become a world champion in boxing and challenge the likes of Canelo, and although me and you might think that that's absolutely crazy, I'm sure Jake Paul doesn't really care what me, you, Eddie Hearn, or anyone else in the boxing world really think, because he probably hasn't got to this point he's got to in life with listening to naysayers. And if Jake does go down this more traditional route of boxing, then actually Andre August isn't even a bad level of opponent. He's the sort of guy that you can learn your craft and hone your skills against. It's going to be Jake's third fight this year, and you've got to give the man credit for staying active. And I actually think that this proves that Jake is serious about boxing, because he could have took a Tommy Fury rematch. He could have negotiated the fight with KSI or Jorge Masvidal. There's a lot of guys that Jake Paul could have fought instead of Andre August. And although at 26 he still has time on his side, if he's only thinking about the money, there's way more lucrative options on the table for him right now. But my advice for Jake Paul would be this: after this fight, don't waste too long fighting these type of guys, because inevitably I do think that eventually you're going to come up against someone who's really not a big name and who's really not anywhere near the caliber of a Canelo Alvarez, probably couldn't even lace Canelo Alvarez's boots, and they will beat you. And you will have to realize that this dream you have of becoming a professional world champion, unless Mauricio Solomon comes up with some random WBC belt, is just not going to happen. And then you'll assess the situation and think, maybe I've wasted a little bit of time trying to build up and fight these guys, when actually I should be throwing myself in to the big money fight. So my advice: dust off Andre August, fight Masvidal, fight KSI, Tommy Fury rematch, Conor McGregor in a crossover fight. Make the bread and fight all of these guys, and give your audience, remember the niche of your audience, they're not pure boxing fans. Give your audience what they want to see, because in the influencer boxing world, Jake Paul may just be the best one. So my prediction for this fight would be a Jake Paul win, and I actually think he does it within 6 rounds. But people, I want to know your predictions for this fight. Are you interested in this fight, or do you only want to see Jake Paul fighting guys from the MMA world and from the YouTube world? And also, please do me a massive, massive favor. If you've made it around to the end of this video, please hit the subscribe button, get in the comments, let me know your thoughts, hit the like button if you're not already. My next video I will be dropping will be covering the man to potentially beat Anthony Joshua.